Hello, I know it's been a really long time since I've done one of these Rahu and Ketu videos. It's the eclipse season. What can I say? Everything gets busy in everybody's life. Being an astrologer doesn't give us immunization from eclipse season, sadly enough. So a lot of things going on for me, a lot of things I'm sure going on for everybody else. But here we are, back again to talk about working with Ketu and Rahu in a horoscope and how to really interpret that. So many different ways to interpret, everywhere from understanding the path the individual is on, even to prediction. But right now, we're wanting to take a look mainly at understanding the path that the individual is on. Obviously, we'll also have a general understanding of the prediction of what that individual's life may be. But we're not getting up to the point yet where we're ready to go into the prediction, through the Varga charts and everything like that, picking out certain things during Rahu period. That's going to come a little more in the future. We've got plenty of time to do lots of videos. I'm going to try to keep it short tonight. I know I say that every time, and I end up kind of getting carried away and doing anything but keeping it short. But let's see if we can actually do that tonight and keep everybody's attention. Because, I do look at these videos. I see how long you're all watching for, and it's usually about 10 to 15 minutes because that's what everybody's time span is usually like with things like this. So taking a look at Rahu and Ketu, if you remember, we've been talking about so far how important it is, just to recap, that the lords of Rahu and Ketu be in good dignity, right? Just to give some examples, if the Lord of Ketu is not in good dignity, then that means that previous lifetimes, whatever Ketu's agenda would have been about, the person didn't have very much success with it. If that Lord is in very good dignity, the person likely had a good deal of success following the path of Ketu, success in whatever Ketu is about. And it's the same with Rahu. Rahu is about our development in this lifetime. And if Rahu's Lord is well supported in the chart, then the path of development associated with Rahu is going to flourish. It doesn't mean it's not going to bring difficulties, right, or challenges, but it means the person will successfully develop. If it's not very well supported, the person's going to have a hard time developing with that particular energy, okay? Now, every once in a while, we get a particular configuration in the chart that's very special, and that's what we're going to work on tonight. If you do remember, I was also touching on what areas this will play itself out through by looking at the position of the lords from the ascendant and from Rahu or Ketu themselves. We'll go over that again in this video, but focusing this video on the fact that, as you can see, we've got Ketu in Leo, and Ketu's Lord is with Ketu. So you get things like this every once in a while, where Ketu's Lord is with Ketu, or Rahu's Lord is with Rahu. So we're going to focus tonight on what it's about when Ketu's Lord is with Ketu. Now, one of the things we need to remember, both Ketu and Rahu are tamasic planets. They bring some difficulties into our lives. They bring some challenges. Reflecting back a little bit too, Ketu represents where we have a strong foundation. And that sounds really good, doesn't it? But, and there's a very big but with this one, but the truth of the matter is we may have a strong foundation somewhere, but we're not developing further. We're kind of stuck with something. And then we feel, just kind of stuck in one position our whole lifetime. And, on one part of us, because we still do have a Rahu, we want to feel that development, but we don't really feel we can develop further, right? So Ketu's Lord conjuncting Ketu is going to bring the attention more to Ketu in this lifetime than it is to Rahu, right? So whatever happened in the previous lifetime, that path is going to continue, or that pattern is going to continue, or as I like to say, that security paradigm will continue. Doesn't mean the person won't experience Rahu a little bit, because they will. They'll have a Rahu period. But what's going to happen? They're going to fall back on Ketu during that Rahu period and keep playing out the agenda of Ketu, because we have to remember that Ketu and Rahu are always intertwined with each other, right? So we're going to take this step by step. So first of all, what do we want to do? Let's remind ourselves. We want to take a look at Ketu and take a look at the sun. And we're not going to do the interpretation yet. We're going to see how the sun's dignity is. Well, we can answer that pretty quickly because the sun is in its own sign, right? So since the sun is in its own sign, it's going to be Mula Trikona because it's in Leo. The sun is Mula Trikona in Leo. So, you know, it's a very powerful, very strong sun. So in previous lifetimes, this person had a lot of success with the agenda of Ketu, right? We'll explore that more here in a moment. But let's take a look equally where that would have played itself out in the person's life. So we can see that Ketu and Sun are in the same sign with each other, right? So obviously, there's going to be a lot of attention towards self, right? Attention towards self. And equally, that's in the 10th from the ascendant. So honor, respect, wanting to receive respect, needing to be seen as being dignified, maybe even needing to be seen as being perfect. Right? So let's analyze this a little bit further. First of all, let's take a look at the fact that Ketu is in Leo. Ketu in Leo. Well, these are quite often the people who, you know how everybody always goes into this thing of saying, you know, I was a reincarnated, you know, Egyptian princess or prince and everything like that. None of them ever says that they were a slave boy or a slave girl in the previous lifetime. Everybody's always a king in a previous lifetime or this, that, or other thing. Well, these people, they're the real ones, right? They're the ones who were really the king in a previous lifetime or really the prince in a previous lifetime. And they developed this pattern where they began to recognize that as long as they appeared dignified or did the thing that made them appear dignified, like not saying dude instead of did, like I just did, but as long as they did the thing that made them appear dignified, then everything would work out smoothly for them. Everything would flow well in their lives, and they would have lots of honor, recognition, and generally lots of status, right? Equally, this person could have had a lot of focus on their career, could have been all these things. And actually, with a chart, it is usually all those things, right? Could have had a lot of attachment to career, very externally focused, secure in their status, right? That really made them feel secure in their status. And we have to keep in mind that the sun is Mula Trikona. So they were very successful. They got a lot of recognition. It made them feel, you know, proud of what they were actually able to achieve and the level of success that they gained from doing that, right? But we're going to analyze a little bit further with this because we'll see there was a different story going on too. First of all, before we go into, well, we already looked at Ketu conjuncting the 10th, right? And we looked at the fact that Ketu is in Leo, okay? Let's kind of start there. And then let's look at Rahu, even though the focus is going to be on Ketu this lifetime because we've got Ketu with the sun. That means that that person is still going to be completing the karma of Ketu, still working with that from previous lifetimes, may even be stuck in that position. Why? Well, because there's more they've got to learn from it, okay? Equally, when Ketu is in Leo, a person tends to express themselves and follows the things that are most inspiring to them. And in this particular instance, probably got a lot of success from doing so and a lot of respect from doing so. But, if they were to go more into Rahu in this lifetime, what would happen is they begin to recognize that even though they got respect from doing that, and even though they felt inspired to do that, part of them wasn't satisfied, right? So they go searching for something deeper, which is ever greater levels of attention and validation for who they are, okay? And that's what tends to happen through Rahu. Equally, because Rahu is an Aquarius, rather than the person always doing the thing that's going to make them appear dignified, the focus in this lifetime would be who they are as an individual, or needing to focus more on who they are as an individual. But because they're stuck in the past, there will be very little of that. They're not going to do much of the inner searching, right? And we have to look at the fact that Rahu in Aquarius is in the 4th, right? So that's going to be connected with, the emotional life. So they're secure materially, but they're not secure emotionally. They're the king who gets a lot of attention, but Rahu in Aquarius means that they don't have a lot of compassion for the people who they serve, right? Or the people that they rule. Instead, they tend to, ignore that. Well, what's going to happen, during Rahu periods a little bit, is the person is going to get pulled into positions where they somehow have their status somewhat pulled away from them, their security pulled away from them. Things aren't working out well, or maybe it's not pulled away from them, but their fears begin to surface. They go very deeply and very passionately into their fears, right? So they're having to really develop a lot of emotional security because of the stress involved with that. So we saw with Ketu, Ketu and the sun are with each other, and we saw that it's the 10th position from the ascendant. Well, with Rahu, we've got Saturn in the 6th. And equally, it's in the 3rd from Rahu, rather. So they put forward the effort. They put forward the effort to try to do the thing of, appearing really dignified inside of themselves and drawing respect to themselves and getting attention for their efforts and being successful and things like that. But it doesn't work out. It leaves them flat, and they start going, oh my God, what am I going to do? All this stuff that, I used to do in the past that brought me all the attention and all the success, just by keeping a dignified personality. Well, none of that is working anymore. So what the hell am I going to do about this, right? Well, what are they going to do? They're going to try to appear more dignified, right? They're going to put on an exterior rather than taking a look at the fact that part of them might actually be a little bit vulnerable. And that if they look at that vulnerability, they actually, may be able to come out the other side and come out of those fears, right? And find true dignity, rather than dignity that's manufactured and worn as a robe or a mantle, as, kings are known to do, right? They'll find the true dignity inside themselves, but it's not going to happen this lifetime. They're just going to keep falling back on appearing dignified. And actually, it's going to bring some level of success once they get out of that Rahu period that's bringing them the difficulty. It's going to work out that they actually get the attention again. So if they get the attention again, there's no need for further development. So they'll ignore that lesson, maybe for some future lifetime, but they'll keep coming back to the same old thing that's associated with Ketu. I have to appear dignified. I have to look like I know what I'm doing, even if I don't. Okay, that's what happens when you have the Lord of Ketu with Ketu. It keeps coming back to Ketu. Now, as I said before, if Ketu's Lord is well supported, there will be success in doing that. But they're still stuck with Ketu. That's still a Tamasic planet. They're not developing anymore, right? So they're not necessarily happy with that. Now, if Ketu's Lord is, beat up and not really functioning well, then what would end up happening is they didn't have any success with it in previous lifetimes. And they're still not having any success with it in this lifetime, but yet they still keep on doing it. It's like they never learn. They keep coming back to the same pattern over and over again. Now, I want to bring your attention to something here, which is the fact, well, first of all, let's touch on Ketu and the Sun. Ketu and the Sun. Sorry, throat got a little hoarse there. Now, when you have a Ketu-Sun connection, these people can appear, very noble. But inside of themselves, they never feel like they're perfect enough. They're always picking themselves apart. They're trying to attain this level of perfection that's not really attainable in a human form, right? Until they recognize the divine inside of themselves. So Ketu-Sun connections are about acceptance, accepting that you're perfect just as you are as an individual, and you don't need to put on a dignified presence with Ketu and the Sun in Leo, right? But this person's not going to get that. Why? Because they're getting success just, picking themselves apart, trying to make themselves more perfect, more dignified, more successful, right? They're going to keep trying to be more successful. And when those difficult times hit, they're going to try to put those fears behind them. And again, put on that dignified presence, because that's what has brought them success before. Because they've got a connection by Rashi aspect between Saturn and Ketu. In a previous lifetime, they were likely in an authoritative position, right? Sorry, a bit tongue twisted there. As if Ketu-Sun wasn't enough. The Ketu-Saturn there means that, they were in an authoritative position, seen as an authority, but they always felt somewhat held back. One part of them wanted to develop further. One part of them wanted to be emotionally secure, but hey, as long as they're getting the honor and the respect that they need or want or desire, they figure, what's the use? This is working, I'm going to stick with this, right? Now, there's a particular thing that happens, called a Lajatati Avastha. There are several Lajatati Avasthas, but there's one going on in this particular chart. Because we've got Ketu and the Sun in Leo with Mercury. Now, when one of the nodes in a cruel planet like the Sun, Mars, or Saturn, or a waning moon, or, in some instances, even a Mercury that's conjunct another cruel planet, when there is a planet that is conjunct Ketu and a cruel planet, then what's going to happen is that planet becomes ashamed. So we can see, because Mercury is the Lord of the 8th and the 11th in this chart, sure, they were likely successful in a previous lifetime, but that success came on the back of somebody else. Now, if that ever broke into the streets when they were a king or whatever it was that they were, or if it ever hit the business papers in terms of, their career, they, would have felt ruined, right? They wouldn't have been able to handle it. What tends to happen with a planet that's in Lajita Avastha, which is what this is called, or ashamed Avastha, is they actually feel ashamed about something, right? Or there's something that they're not happy about in their life that's, in relation to that planet. And the strength of the planet that's creating the shame, which is the Sun in this instance, along with Ketu, is going to determine the level that they're going to feel that by. Right? Feel that too, I should say. There's actually another Lajatati Avastha that's here too, which is created whenever a planet shares the same sign as the Sun, and it's called Kshobita Avastha, or agitated Avastha. But it's not, just agitated or frustrated. It's actually somewhat like fear. Imagine someone or something that's going to be sacrificed, and the level of fear or nervousness that they feel about that. That's kind of akin to what agitated Avastha is about, because the sun will quite literally sacrifice planets that it comes into contact with for its own agenda. So in this particular instance, the person's dreams, hopes, aspirations may have been sacrificed previously. In a previous lifetime for the sake of their career, or for the sake of appearing dignified. Their deepest, innermost feelings, even perhaps their potency, if this was a male, this is just a randomly created chart, by the way, was sacrificed for the sake of their career or other people's resources. There was fear because other people's resources were sacrificed for the sake of their career. So quite literal fear, in addition to the fact that they feel ashamed of that. Both of those things would have been present, right? So externally, this person may appear rather dignified, right? They're able to put on a good show and a good appearance, but internally, there's quite a different show going on. They're picking themselves apart. They feel confident inside of themselves, right? They're, pretty seasoned in terms of, fighting battles and things like that, but it all comes by putting their inner feelings aside, right? And just kind of doing whatever makes them appear the most dignified, right? Equally, we've got this Ketu Mercury connection here. Previous lifetimes with Ketu Mercury would have been wrapped up in the way one thinks that things work, right? One thinks that as long as they have this dignified appearance, things are going to be secure. Life is built up around intellectualism or ideas. But inside there's indecision and inner doubt. Even though they're going to make the decision that's going to make them appear the most dignified, inside there is doubt. They may appear in authority as per Ketu Saturn, but internally there is doubt. And they gain their victory on the backs of other people, more than likely. And that brought them a lot of success. In this lifetime, it'll probably bring them a lot of success again, with the exception of when they're in their Rahu Dasha. And it will probably bring them success then too, but what's going to happen is they're going to get confronted with circumstances that make it so that the rug is pulled out from underneath them, and they're going to have to confront their fears. But the way they'll confront those fears is by appearing dignified. So that's going to do it for this video, with the exception that I always like to say, which is if you would like to schedule a consultation with me so I can look at your Ketu and your Rahu for you, you can please click on the link that is over there in that corner. It's not down here, it's over there in that corner. Not that you can't see it or anything. And that'll take you to my astrological services page. Next video, which we'll do next week, we will cover Rahu's Lord with Rahu. Thanks a lot. Bye now.